The least important consequence of Theresa May's dawn breakthrough in Brussels is that it might well have saved her premiership. Failure to strike an agreement that satisfied both her Belfast allies and the negotiators in Brussels would, in the eyes of many Tory MPs, have removed the chief justification for her continued tenure in Downing Street, namely, that she can deliver Brexit. The Tory regicidal instinct, never still, was twitching. Today's declaration that the talks had made sufficient progress has pacified that urge for a while. As things stand, Tories are minded to allow her to stay until the end of March 2019, to see through Article 50 and Britain's exit from the European Union. They know that's bound to be a horrible job, so, for now, they're happy to let her do it. But, to repeat, that's the least significant aspect. More important, because it is a matter of the country's future rather than one politician's career, is that the no-deal scenario has receded. It hasn't disappeared, but it has become less likely. That explains the ill temper of Nigel Farage and his successor as UKIP leader, Henry Bolton, who declared May's move a total surrender to the European Commission. They, and the hardest Tory Brexiters, were yearning for the deadlock that would have justified Britain storming off and slamming the door. Instead, a phased departure looks to be the most probable outcome. How did this come about? Like any deal, it required all the key players to have their own reasons for preferring agreement to failure. For May, the motive was obvious. Not only was her career hanging by a thread, but she could see what's clear to all but the most wild-eyed Brexiter, that no deal would be an economic catastrophe. That's why she was ready to give ground on all those EU demands where once her government struck such an unbending pose, including paying the hefty divorce bill and accepting that the writ of the European Court of Justice will run until at least the late 2020s. You can also see why the DUP eventually fell into line. They wanted reassurance that Northern Ireland was not going to be treated any differently from the rest of the UK, a defining tenet of Ulster Unionism, but they were never likely to push May too far. They don't want to see this government collapse, followed by fresh elections. They don't dare risk the elevation of Jeremy Corbyn, whom they remember as a Republican sympathiser during the era of the Troubles. Besides, the current, rather lucrative arrangement, in which they hold the government's fate in their hands, suits them very well. Most interesting is the European willingness to shake hands. Farage will say that's hardly a surprise, given May's capitulation to the EU's key demands. But we know that Brussels had resolved from June 24, 2016 onwards to make Brexit as painful as possible, seeing its potential as an instruction video for any other member states that were considering making the same mistake. In which case, why not let May, and Britain, suffer a few months longer?